Why do we have Emmanuel Cleaver even bothering to get involved in the Washington, D.C. drama and saga around using the National Guard and federalizing the police department? Why is our Kansas City representative coming anywhere near this story? Especially considering Kansas City has found itself in the most violent 5-year stretch in the history of this town. Why? Please, somebody tell me why he's wasting his time doing this. I don't get it.
You mustard move.
You tell me. It's 6:05. It is a Tuesday, and I am so glad you're here with us on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM, and we are always streaming right on that KCMO Talk Radio app. So that way you do what I do. Get up in the morning, pull up your phone, pull out the KCMO Talk Radio app, and boom, you got the station right there. That's how I start my morning every day. I know many of you do the same thing. And for those of you who don't, you're missing out. So yesterday was headlined by the President of the United States coming out and saying that he was going to essentially try to make the streets of Washington, D.C. much safer by doing this.
Under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States, I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that.
I completely agree with what he's doing. He has the right to do it. The mayor there has decided that she's really not going to challenge it, and that's because Washington, D.C., like Kansas City and like too many other major American cities, has seen a major uptick in crime the last few years. And while most cities are down slightly from their peaks a couple of years ago, they're still well above their recent historical levels. That's what you're seeing in D.C. That's what we're seeing here in Kansas City. We just had our 100th homicide of the year over the weekend. It happened to be a 16-year-old girl who wasn't even out on the streets. She was in her own home. And for some reason that we don't know yet, she was targeted and she was killed. And now we're outpacing last year's numbers. We're not at the same pace we were at back in 2023, which was a historic year for homicides in Kansas City at 182. We are not on that pace, but we are still well above where the city needs to be. It was our current mayor, Quinton Lucas, who once said he wanted to get the homicides under 100 per year in Kansas City. Barring a miracle, he will never come close to that number. Next year's his last chance. And there's very little evidence to suggest he will ever come close to reaching that goal. In fact, there will be some years he will have been off by nearly double. So here's Emmanuel Cleaver, who was once the mayor of Kansas City, now has been obviously the congressman for Kansas City for decades at this point. And he decides to chime in on this yesterday, writing on social media, crime hit a 30-year low in Washington last year. Crime is down another 26% this year. Rather than wasting taxpayer dollars and law enforcement resources to insult our nation's capital, the president should focus on lowering costs for American families. Well, I'm glad that Emmanuel Cleaver, who didn't say a darn thing during 4 years of Joe Biden's White House tenure about lowering costs for the American family, I'm glad he's now concerned with that. I mean, genuinely, I'm I guess, happy he's trying to focus on that. I'm not sure he's got the answers, but sure. I mean, I agree that should be issue and priority number one for Donald Trump and all of Congress, for that matter. But that's the end of where I give Emmanuel Cleaver a lot of credit on this post. First off, I saw a lot of people saying that crime hit a 30-year low in Washington, D.C. I mean, I'm literally looking at a chart here that shows the Washington, D.C. homicide rate going back 35 years. And while it peaked in 2023, and it was definitely down about 25% last year, it still is more than double where it was in the early 2010s. Yes, it's much lower than it was back in the early 1990s. That's true, okay? But it is still basically double on the homicides per capita from where it was going on 15 years ago at this point. So I don't even know where they're getting these numbers. I am looking at an FBI chart in front of me here that tracks the homicide rate in Washington, D.C. going back 35 years. And I don't see any chart that shows crime at a 30-year low in Washington, D.C. And if that's the game that you want to play, if the goal here is to, just like last year, when folks like Emanuel Cleaver were out there and they were saying, hey, you know, the economy's great. Just believe us. Let me pick and choose this data point. Let me cherry pick a data point to suggest to you the economy's great. And people were like, no, I don't feel it's great. It's the same thing here with crime. It's also why Trump's got to be very careful, too, with his economic numbers. No politician, left or right, can try to convince you on something that you don't believe and you don't feel. In the end, the people are going to decide whether or not they're feeling economic pain or they're feeling economic prosperity or they're feeling safe or they're feeling unsafe. That relates to crime. That relates to the economy. You can have all the data points you want, and obviously those matter, but you can only will those data points so far along until people say, listen, you're not going to tell me how to feel. And I think it's incredibly applicable right now to this story, crime and safety, whether it's in D.C. or here in Kansas City, where we talk a lot about the crime issue in Kansas City. And same thing when it comes to the economy. So Emanuel Cleaver, who's sitting here on the verge of getting potentially wiped out as a congressman, if they go ahead and gerrymander the state, is not helping his cause here. And he was getting just absolutely roasted after he posted this on social media, or a staffer posted this on social media. I mean, I'm looking at some of these responses. Somebody writes back to Congressman Cleaver here in Kansas City, you obviously don't walk down the same Washington, D.C. streets that I do. I'm thankful that our president is taking aim at the filth and crime in our nation's capital. Someone else writes back, LOL, ZZZZZZZ to Emanuel Cleaver. Someone else writes here, this is Richard writing to Emanuel Cleaver. Dear Mr. Cleaver, speaking of wasting taxpayer money, you've been doing that for more than 20 years. Ouch! The only reason crime is down in D.C. is that local judicial system is no longer prosecuting crimes like they used to. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that you're seeing from, I guess these are Washington, D.C. residents who are just roasting our Kansas City congressman in the wake of his post yesterday. This is something that national Democrats and, frankly, national Republicans should just stay out of. It's very unique to Washington, D.C. It's specific to D.C. I saw a lot of national GOP figures, including our two Missouri U.S. senators, being like, make Washington, D.C. safe again. Guys, I hate to break it to you, but for the most part, back here in Missouri,
nobody cares.
No one does. And Emanuel Cleaver, same thing. I know you got to rip on Trump every chance you get, but this is not the one you want to pick the fight with, okay? It's not. You're the congressman for a city that's been at a 5-year high in violent crime. And I have not heard him chime in yet. Maybe I missed it, but I have not heard him chime in yet on the fact that Kansas City has been dealing with one of its deadliest runs in history, but now he's worried about what Trump's doing in Washington, D.C. You gotta have the pulse of your own constituents, and too many times, these guys and gals are getting caught up in the food fight in D.C., and it's not going to work out well for them. Coming up on KCMO, two wild stories from one of our neighboring communities. I mean, this is a crazy twofer happening right next to each other. We'll share the details of the who and where next. Wild scene yesterday in Lawrence. These two stories broke, and I couldn't believe it, right next door to each other. So let's start here. A child slumber party ended in commotion when an unknown naked man broke into the home in the middle of the night. Now, you tell me, you're a parent, right? Grandparent. And you wake up to screams in your home. You're having, your kids' friends over. In this case, it was a bunch of young girls. having a slumber party. A couple of girls are sleeping on the couch downstairs, and you wake up to them screaming. You come downstairs, and there's a naked man in the home. I'm genuinely asking. I'm not saying this to be a wise guy. How many of you, just because of your gut reaction, not letting that guy get out alive? Like, that was my first thought. I see this story and I'm like, okay, you do that in the wrong house? Maybe it worked at a home near 21st in Louisiana in Lawrence. But there's a lot of places in the Kansas City area where you do that and suddenly you're not making it out alive. Well, it turns out this guy didn't know where he was. He stumbled into this home. He appeared to be on drugs. They call the police. Of course, they somehow get the man out of the house without hurting him physically. And the man was assessed by EMS, taken to the Douglas County Correctional Facility, where he was booked on several charges. But he was a guy who was walking around Lawrence naked, was high on drugs, and stumbled into a girls' slumber party near 21st in Louisiana, John.
Yep, I understand your point. I was questioning the security of the perimeter in the first place, going, wow, I know they're older houses with porches and things, and I don't know, maybe a jimmy, a door, but I'm questioning the security of the perimeter in the first place.
Well, I think it's fair to question the parents, too, and be like, okay, you've got half a dozen little girls in your house at night. Is no one checking the doors before you go to bed?
Something like that, maybe.
Do the kids screw around with the doors? I don't know. That came to my mind as well.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe a kid snuck out and then...
I wondered about that. I didn't want to just put it on the parents.
Right. Fair enough.
But I couldn't help but think to myself, man, all I know is Claire's not having any sleepovers yet. She's starting to ask about having one or two with the neighbors. But whenever that first one comes, I'll tell you what, I've got 4 alarms set for the middle of the night to check the freaking doors.
Well, yeah, set up a sleepover around Halloween so you can be the scarecrow in the chair that suddenly moves, right? That kind of stuff.
I'll be that guy.
Let them know you've got it covered.
Oh, man. Yeah, even last night we, ran out and got some ice cream for the girls as they get set to start school this week. I can't believe it's already starting. And got home, and I could have sworn I had the garage door taken care of, but it's sometimes, those old garage doors, they come down, they pop back up on you. So now I got to do clearance throughout the entire home. I mean, it happens. I understand it. We've all been there before, but you're like, gosh darn it. Between that and my locker last week, I'm really on a run at the gym too. It's bad.
I will get a little pile of crap like cobweb, and it'll dangle a leaf, and the leaf will break the plane as it goes up.
Yeah.
At 2 in the morning when I'm heading to work and the door going back, I'm like, no, I don't need this now. I figured it out there. But that's when I get that little dangling thing there.
The worst, too, is when it's like 15 degrees outside in the middle of winter and it does it to you. And you're like, no, what are you doing? Stop. All right. Now, the other thing in Lawrence that happened here, a woman in her 70s taken to the hospital after she and her Chihuahua were attacked by a dog not on a leash in a Lawrence park. Officers with the Lawrence Police Department responded to Centennial Skate Park, 2 p.m., found 2 men holding down a dog. Officers made a makeshift muzzle out of a leash and got control of the dog while tending to a woman who was hurt. Police learned that a woman in her 70s was walking her 3 dogs, including a Chihuahua, when another dog off a leash attacked the Chihuahua. She attempted to free her dog and suffered a severe bite on her arm, a broken finger, and other minor injuries. The Chihuahua did not survive the attack. Officers have not been able to make contact with the owner of the dog that was off the leash. So I don't know if this was a stray dog. It looks like it may have been, considering they still have not found the owner. But I am not opposed, as someone who almost lost his dog about a year ago. It was Mother's Day last year when Woody, our 13, man, that guy's 13. I can't believe it. 13-year-old Havanese ran off the porch and was nearly killed by a couple of big dogs because he was trying to protect us. I can't help but think that at some point it has got to be on the homeowner, the dog owner, who does not have their animal on a leash if, God forbid, that animal goes out there and kills another dog. Now, in the case of me, my dog was not on the leash, so I'm not saying this applies to me. I'm not making this about me. I'm just saying I almost lost my dog a year ago because he was not on a leash. At some point, as a dog owner, if your dog is not on a leash, that's on you. I said as much last year. My dog ran into the street because I didn't have him on a leash, and he almost lost his life. I'm not blaming anybody else. Now, I've got issues with how that went down, but I'm not blaming anybody else for my dog being off a leash. At some point, you see this all the time, where the dogs who are off the leashes are the ones who obviously end up attacking somebody. They attack another dog, they kill another dog, and the owners are like, whoopsie daisy. Oh, boy, that's a shame. Gosh, I wish that didn't happen. So what can you realistically do about it? I mean, at some point, I do think that if they ever find the owner of this dog, there's got to be repercussions. You killed another dog, you injured a woman, you sent her to the hospital. It's like, okay, well, I don't think that you should just be able to walk away from that because it was an animal who did it. Who's in charge of the animal? Who's responsible for the animal? We have laws on the books for some of this stuff, but it seems like no one ever does anything with it. And this is one of those examples where if they find the owner of this dog that killed this Chihuahua and sent this 70-year-old woman to the hospital in Lawrence, I would be more than okay with Lawrence police, with this woman who was attacked, filing charges against the owner of that dog. I'm not a frivolous lawsuit guy, but there have to be repercussions for people whose animals that they own break the law and, God forbid, end up killing another dog and hurting somebody. Because there's way too much of that going on, it seems like, where the dogs are just willy-nilly all over the place, and it's not a safe situation. It's not a good situation for anybody. Coming up on KCMO, Frank White and the recall effort coming up in late September. There are updates that you do not want to miss. And we'll get to it right after the news on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM and streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Moving ahead with the recall election of Jackson County Executive Frank White. And now we have some more information to share with you here. So we know that no excuse absentee voting will begin 1 week from today, Tuesday, August 19th. Voting managers in locations will have 143 total polling places available for voters leading up to the September 30th special recall election of County Executive Frank White.
Yeah, and I may be jumping ahead on you here, but there's the Kansas City Election Board if you live in Kansas City, Missouri, and there's the Jackson County Election Board for the rest of us, Grandview, Lee Summit, et cetera, that will vote on this. I don't know that I was trying to figure out if there's any difference in the rules, but I thought Kansas City's saying they're going to have less polling places open, but they were going to make it easier to do the
no excuse absentee.
There we go. Thank you.
So they will have fewer polling locations in Kansas City. Jackson County is going to have about 143 locations, is what they're saying right now, based on this report from Fox 4. So you look at this and you say to yourself, okay, Frank White needs major turnout in the urban core to try to save himself. The question is, can he get it? I don't believe he can. And I'm waiting for the race card to be played here. I don't want it to be played. I don't think it should be played. I think it's irrelevant to what's been going on in Jackson County with this county executive. But desperate people do desperate things. And as we approach September 30th, I was talking to a couple of people yesterday who are friendly with Frank. Like, they don't think he's done a good job, but they're friendly with Frank. They've known him for a long time. And they're like, this guy is his own worst enemy. This guy genuinely does not believe that the property tax issue is the reason that he's being recalled. He actually thinks that this is about baseball and football stadiums. And I'm like, there's no way he believes that. They said, no. And they're well aware of Frank White's thinking here. They said this is absolutely what this guy is thinking right now. He thinks that he is getting recalled because he was on the wrong side, air quotes, of the stadium issue last April. And I'm like, how's this possible? How can you be that aloof? How could you possibly be that aloof if you're Frank White, sitting there and thinking to yourself that the reason this is happening is not because of people's property assessments and as a result their property taxes, but rather the Royals and the Chiefs? If that was the case, then you should be able to survive the recall, right? I mean, the Royals and the Chiefs went down by, 20 points almost? Mm-hmm. So if you're Frank, you've got to be thinking, if you genuinely believe that this is about the Royals and the Chiefs stadium, then you've got to be thinking to yourself, boy, I'm going to roll. I'm going to be saved. I am not going to get recalled. That's the only conclusion that you can come to if you're Frank White, and you genuinely think that you're only being recalled because there are big money interest groups around the Chiefs and the Royals that want you out. And frankly, I'll tell you what, too. There's a lot of people on that county commission who are very unimpressive. I mean, our buddy Sean Smith's a good guy. But it's not like it's a murderer's row of Mensa members behind Frank White on that county legislature. Let's be honest. There's a lot of drama behind Frank White that's not going to get solved overnight, John.
Well, to your point about what friends have revealed, it would seem so. I mean, if that's what he's thinking, because it seems to me he said more about taking down Andrew Jackson's statue in front of the courthouse than addressing 2023 or even the current 2025 tax situations.
That's a great point. I forgot about
That's
that.
the way I feel.
Yeah.
He had more to say about that publicly.
Oh, yeah.
He
was
didn't have to
all
look
over
for
it.
him then.
No. He was all over it. That's an excellent point with the Andrew Jackson statue outside the courthouse. But, hey, my property taxes are going up to an unaffordable level. I'm about to get kicked out of my house. What do I do? I got nothing for you. Nothing. That's Frank right now. 913-408-7957. So I'm curious to know how many of you are just counting down. Maybe you're taking off September 30th. You're not going to miss out on the chance to recall the county executive a year before he gets out of office. John has not put in for a day off yet, but I'm wondering if that might be coming. Although you've got a pretty good schedule, so my hope is that you'll be here that day. It'll be a big day in Kansas City.
Well, I got plenty of time to take off after duties here.
Yes.
My duties here are largely ceremonial anyway. So. Actually, I'm practicing whether I'm going in a circle counterclockwise or clockwise to color in the little deal. So I'm working on that. I'm trying left-handed, see if I can do it that way, too.
Well, the line should keep moving. That's one thing that the Jackson County Election Board is saying. It's literally one question. You're walking in, you're answering one question on recalling Frank White, and you're walking the heck back out. So please, don't be the person that's holding up the line for the Frank White recall vote on September 30th, because there will be fewer polling locations.
Wanted to streamline the process. We could just pick smiley face or puke face emoji.
Oh, man. It's like when you walk out of the bathrooms at KCI, you get to rate the cleanliness of the bathroom, and it's either a big smile face all the way down to the puke emoji. So you can rank that how you see fit. But on the text line, 913-408-7957, Pete, what would you put the odds at right now of Frank being recalled? I think it's 80-20 he's done. I suppose there's a 20% chance that he makes it. But remember, it's a Tuesday in late September. Only the very motivated people are going to show up to vote. The casuals will not be there. And you tell me, after the last 3 years in Jackson County and Kansas City, at least for the Jackson County part, you tell me who's more motivated right now. The people who are going to be out there voting to recall Frank White, or the people who are going to be out there trying to save Frank White? It's really that simple. It's why midterms always flip-flop, right? It's why Democrats are likely to win back the House of Representatives next year, not because they've got some grand plan, but their voters are going to be much more enthusiastic about going to the polls than Republicans. Most likely, if I were a betting man right now. It's the same idea with Frank White's recall coming up here in a few weeks. The thousands and thousands of Jackson County residents who are fed up with the leadership. And not just the fact that the tax assessment issue has been so screwed up, but the fact that Frank White has been so aloof about it and has seemingly not cared about it and hasn't said anything about it, to John's point, that part is just as offensive as how badly it's been handled. It's not like it was handled badly and Frank was like, oh my goodness, we need to fix this. I'm so sorry. He's been front and center. There's been none of that.
Didn't even get a whoops.
Yeah, not a thing from this guy. So you stack all these things on top of each other, and I just think he's done. I don't know how he could possibly survive this thing. On the text line, Pete, when are you going to address the fact that property taxes are discriminatory, predatory, and unconstitutional by their nature? When? All caps. I mean, I don't know. You want me to do it now? Not changing it. I mean, yeah, the idea that you own a piece of property, you get unrealized gains on it, and then you get taxed on those unrealized gains. Think about this. It's the equivalent of owning Microsoft stock. And every year that Microsoft stock goes up, even if you don't sell that stock, you're getting taxed on owning that stock. Yeah, it's absurd. It's ridiculous. But we know it's how our cities, our counties, and our schools and our states all function and operate and fund government services. And it's gotten totally out of control. And yes, it has been abused. You got people who own their homes outright who still don't know if they can stay in their homes because of insurance costs and property taxes today. I mean, that's not the American dream. So hopefully that's addressing it. But, you know, if you think this stuff is changing anytime soon, you're kidding yourself. It's not. It's a huge part of how local government gets funded because they ballooned completely out of control. Can the Kansas City Royals just poop or get off the pot already? I'm so worn out by their little song and dance. And I respect what they're trying to do. I've said this for a long time. All right. But at the same time, my goodness, they've blown past so many of their own deadlines. You can't keep track of all of those deadlines anymore. You can't. The last one that comes to mind was when John Sherman said a couple of months ago, we have a stated objective of being able to talk about a specific location. I'm calling it in the middle of the calendar year in that June or July period. Would somebody tell me what today's date is, if you don't mind?
August the 11th, 4 days from payday.
It's the 12th, but you were close, John. It's okay.
Yep, you're right.
I don't want people thinking that this is a pre-recorded show on a Monday or something like that. We are live. It's 7:06 on a Tuesday, August the 12th. Glad you're here on KCMO. But you know what? At least you hit the under there, John. All right? Price is
So
right
3
rules.
days till payday.
Yeah, 3 days, man. You woke up. It's even better. 3 days to go till
Man,
payday.
I'll tell you what, Trump in office, I can just keep winning.
Yesterday, this news comes down courtesy of Fox 4. Multiple sources have confirmed to Fox 4 that a Royals-affiliated company has reached an agreement that will give it ownership of the Hesperia campus, the Old Spring campus. The deal between Occidental Management, a Wichita-based company, and the Royals affiliate means there will be no foreclosure that could have tied the property up during the process. Now, this became a story a couple of months ago when this news first broke. Kansas City Business Journal also reported that this company, Occidental, the former owner of the Old Spring campus, had until August 9th to make more than a $230 million balloon payment. Monday's confirmation does not mean the Royals' new stadium is moving to the Hesperia campus, but it does mean the group that bought it has control to do what they want, barring approval from leaders at Overland Park City Hall. And we know that the leaders in Overland Park are not going to get in the way of this. They're not going to do it. Maybe they should, but they won't. So does this mean that the Royals are going to 119th and Knoll? No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean that whatsoever. But it does mean that there are business interests tied to that location for the Royals. Is it possible that this is just a really good deal that has nothing to do with the future stadium location? Absolutely. Entirely possible. But could it also mean there's added incentive for the Royals to look at that location? Yeah, sure it does. And at a time when it's not really obvious where the Royals are going to go, this is one of those moves that makes you at least scratch your head and say, maybe that is the location they're ultimately looking at. Now, as I've said for a long time, it's a terrible location for a baseball stadium. You talk about 119th in row, 119th in all, whichever side you're talking about. I mean, what are you going to do? You going to expand row and null? You're going to shut down and basically make it ingress-egress, so you're basically closing off the roadway that goes towards 435 on the way to a game to get people in, and God forbid you then close it the other way, getting out of a game? Is that what you're going to do? Is that the answer? I don't think so. But who knows what they've got planned? I have no idea. All I know is if I lived in the area, I would hate the idea of a ballpark being in my backyard and hearing all that noise and having all that traffic 81 nights a year. It's time that residents of that part of Overland Park and Leawood start speaking up. And I did see that on Fox 4 last week. A couple of our listeners reached out and said, hey, you told us to start barking about this. We reached out to Fox 4 and John Ketz, and we talked to him on camera. I said, great. The more the merrier. You guys have to make your voices heard right now, because I have zero confidence that the people that represent you in Leawood and in Overland Park are going to put your best interests first. There's no evidence to suggest that they are. Leawood won't even put somebody on camera to talk about this. Where's the backbone at the Leawood City Hall, for crying out loud? And Overland Park, forget it. They've mostly sold their souls to developers for the last 10 years. They're not going to do a darn thing on that front. They'll just say, tell us where to sign. So you've got to start making that noise. That being said, part of this report yesterday from John Ketz sounded like this on Fox 4.
The Royals could win an election, but not in the political climate that we have right now.
Dan followed that up by saying people like him and former Jackson County Sports Complex Authority Chair Mike Smith had all the contracts in place prior to the vote back in 2006. Those two work together now at the Twin Lakes Insurance Agency.
Look, I don't think the Royals are going there. Why would they renew the leases?
Smith said our area is short in manpower to build a stadium.
Doesn't that mean that an announcement has to come down soon unless the Royals will be playing at the K in 2031?
Well, the Royals can always play at the K in 2031. I mean, look, if I'm them, I'm going to keep my cards against my chest as long as I can before I play my ace and win or lose.
Now, we reached out to the Royals to try to get this confirmed through them earlier today, but as they have in the past several months, really since the day before opening day, Lauren, they have not commented on this story.
I love that dig from John Ketz at the very end. Mark's laughing in there, but that was a clear dig, right? I mean, I didn't misinterpret that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
They ain't talking to him, and he's upset about it.
I know. I respect that, though. I really do.
We all want to hear from him.
I know.
It's annoying at this point.
It is. It's beyond annoying. And, I know the reporters can't really do the opinion stuff like we do. Trust me, they want to. I know many of them are jealous, okay, that we just come on here every day and we just literally tell you what we think about all the top stories in Kansas City. And they're like, they got to, bite their lip and report and they do the whole thing. But that was a clear shot by John Ketz, basically saying, yep, been trying for months to get a statement, can't get a darn thing. And, of course, he's right to be frustrated because the whole town is frustrated at this point. And this is a part of this that I think the Royals have to understand. If you have to go to a vote for anything, and you'll have to in Jackson County or Kansas City, Missouri, you'll have to, as we understand it, up in Clay County, man, even in Overland Park, where it may not have to go to a vote, but there will be a lot of debate and discussion in the Overland Park City Hall about this if they pick that location. You have got to develop as much goodwill and as much transparency as you possibly can. And if you are going to look up in the dictionary right now, the antithesis, the antonym of transparency, you'll see a big picture of the Royals. That's what you'll see. Now, they might say, well, there's nothing to share right now. Okay, well, the last time we heard from you guys, you were talking about, June, July. It's August 12th. And remember, late last fall, the delay was, well, we made the playoffs, so we got sidetracked on baseball. That's why we were pushed back last year. Okay, well, now you're 4 games out of the wild card, and God willing, you'll make the playoffs. I know we're all hoping that's the case, but, how far do we have to go now? Is the excuse this fall going to be, we were in the thick of the playoff race, so we kind of got sidetracked on the stadium stuff? Okay, well, people are done. They're fed up, and if you have to get the goodwill of the voter and or the resident based on the location that you pick, whoever's in charge of that part of this on John Sherman's behalf should have been fired a week ago, because they are doing a week, a month, a year at this point. They're doing a terrible job on the communication side. And I've also heard from some folks, in Jackson County, higher ups in Jackson County, they can't even get a return phone call at this point. So that makes you wonder what the relationship is like on that front. I really think it's down to well, I guess you could throw 3 locations into the mix. North Kansas City, Overland Park, or staying right where they're at for another 5 years. Because at some point, you got to break ground on this thing, right? I mean, we're getting close to 2026, and you guys want to be somewhere new by 2031. It's going to take time. 913-408-7957. That is our text line and our studio line on KCMO. Pete, it's a great location. A lot of people live there. Wow. Stellar analysis on the text line. I'm not sure what that means. All I know is I really don't think that the people that live around there want any part of a baseball stadium 81 nights a year. But I'm happy to be proven wrong. If they pick it and there's massive support, we'll report it and talk about it here on KCMO. Coming up, the President of the United States said something very bluntly yesterday on Making Deals that I actually think is very relatable for each of us in our lines of work. I'll explain next. Trump said something yesterday that a lot of people laughed at, and they're just like, oh, there he is, the arrogant, president doing what he does. But I thought about it, and I said to myself, no, this is actually one of the more relatable things that he's ever said when you take a step back and view it through the prism of your own line of work and your own business and your own industry. So the president was talking about how he is getting set to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin coming up on Friday in Alaska. And he talked about how he believes he'll know in the first couple of minutes whether this meeting is basically one big waste of time, or if he can actually cut a deal, or at least help Ukraine cut a deal with Russia to bring an end to the war. Here's what he said.
Well, we're going to have a meeting with Vladimir Putin, and at the end of that meeting, probably in the first 2 minutes, I'll know exactly whether or not a deal can be made. How will you know that? Because that's what I do. I make deals.
Oh, gosh. That's what I do. I make deals.
I make deals. That's what I do. I like when he gets like a little bit, I don't know what the word is, but
he just has that, it's like a sarcastic, childlike inflection to his voice.
Yeah, kind of childlike. Yeah.
Yes. It kind of like mockingly mimicking the reporter, like, you dummy. Why are you asking that question? That's what I do. I make deals. And a lot of people, I saw on social media were like, oh my gosh, how arrogant. But it reminded me of a story when I met with somebody who is in sales for a living. They're in window sales. And they said, I'll sit down at the table with someone and I'll know in 2 minutes whether or not they're serious about buying, these windows from us. I'll just have a feel for it based on body language and questions they ask, and I'll know right away whether or not I'm wasting my time. But of course, you kind of have to go through the motions anyway. And that's basically what Trump's saying. Trump's been cutting deals. I mean, the guy wrote a book about it, in case you didn't know. He'll be the first one to tell you. The guy's been cutting deals in mostly the New York State real estate business, but of course he's been doing it for the government, the country as well, on and off for the last 10 years at this point. He just knows. Nothing wrong with that. You probably have that in your line of work. You're driving right now to the office. There's something that you're going to do today where you will know in the first 2 minutes whether or not you're wasting your time, whether or not that meeting that you have with somebody is going to result in anything substantial or consequential. You'll know. If you're a plumber, if you're an electrician, you'll know in the first couple of minutes when you evaluate something, whether or not it's a quick fix, it's a big fix, it's going to be a cheap fix, it's going to be a costly fix. I could look at that stuff all day and have no freaking idea what I'm looking at because it's your line of work. And that's basically what Trump is saying. He deals with people. He's been doing it for 50, 60 years at this point. He cuts deals. He knows how to make them work. And he'll know in the first couple of minutes talking to Putin whether or not this is a serious meeting or it's not. He's right. And I couldn't believe the mockery that he was taking yesterday. Listen, there's plenty of stuff to mock the guy for, but I don't think this is one of them. I mean, I'll know in 2 minutes whether or not I think the segment that we're doing and the topic we're talking about has legs. If not, what do? I move on. I'm not going to belabor a point or beat up a topic just for the sake of it. We're just going to keep it moving and go on to the next thing. You get a feel for it. It's like any other job. Does this thing have pacing? Does it feel right? Does it have momentum? Am I taking it in the right direction? Does it have enough, offshoot topics to develop? What are you doing with it? Where are you going with the story? Those are things that I think about doing this every day, and it's applicable to every single one of our jobs. And that's basically what Trump was saying yesterday when he said this. And there's nothing wrong with it. In fact, I'm glad he's the guy going to this meeting. Imagine Kamala Harris going to this meeting. I mean, first off, she wouldn't have gotten the meeting anyway. I mean, the guy never met with Biden. But could you imagine Kamala? I mean, what would her opening line be? How much she loves Russian vodka to try to appeal to Putin? I mean, what's she possibly going to say? Big fan of Popov, Vladimir. Love that stuff. $12 for a fifth. It's great. Can't beat it. Vlad's like, what am I doing here? Oh, my goodness. What a joke. Like, I'll take this guy every day and twice on Sunday on this negotiation versus what the alternative options would have been here. Not perfect, but on this one, sign me up every single time.